In the year 1850, Great Britain held an unparalleled industrial supremacy, producing in excess of 50% of the globe's iron, coal, and textile output. This era saw the construction of transcontinental railways, the dominion of global shipping routes, and the proliferation of factories that fueled worldwide industry. British engineering prowess was so advanced that other nations eagerly imported British machinery, sought out British engineers, and emulated British manufacturing techniques simply to remain competitive. However, by 1950, Great Britain found itself unable to produce steel at competitive pricing. Its textile mills had shuttered and its shipyards lay dormant. The very factories that had once provided employment for millions stood empty. The nation that had pioneered the Industrial Revolution became a consumer of manufactured goods from Germany, America, and Japan. Within a mere 100 years, the world's leading manufacturer transformed into a post-industrial entity reliant on finance and services, a stark contrast to its former self as the globe's primary industrial hub. This decline proved irreversible. After 75 years, recovery remained elusive, a testament to the enduring truth that once manufacturing capability is lost, it is exceedingly difficult, if not impossible, to reclaim. Fast forward to the present year, 2025, and the United States is demonstrably following Great Britain's precise historical trajectory. We are approximately 170 years behind them on a parallel path characterized by factory closures, diminishing market share, and reliance on imports from nations we once surpassed. We are currently navigating the fourth stage of a five-stage progression that irrevocably dismantled Great Britain's industrial foundation. Great Britain's story was not an isolated incident. In 1950, Detroit, Michigan stood as America's most prosperous city and the undisputed automotive capital of the world. Yet by 2013, Detroit had declared bankruptcy. Before we delve into the pattern, it is crucial to grasp the true significance of manufacturing for a nation's power. This is not an abstract economic concept, it is a tangible reality. Manufacturing encompasses more than merely producing goods. It is the bedrock of technological capability, the guarantor of supply chain resilience, the cornerstone of national security, and the source of well-paying middle-class jobs that sustain families and communities. The act of creation fosters innovation among engineers, cultivates skilled workers, and establishes intricate supply chains that support entire industrial ecosystems. A single automotive plant, for instance, not only employs assembly line workers, but also generates demand for steel suppliers, component manufacturers, tool makers, logistics firms, engineers, and designers. Indeed, one manufacturing job can directly support 5 additional jobs within the community. When manufacturing flourishes, the middle class prospers as factory positions offer substantial wages, often without requiring a college degree or incurring student debt. Individuals can acquire skills on the job, earn a respectable income, purchase homes, raise families, and build wealth. The very essence of the American dream, historically forged in factories. Conversely, when manufacturing falters, so too does this prosperity. Jobs evaporate, skills become obsolete, supply chains migrate overseas, and their repatriation becomes an insurmountable challenge. Once manufacturing capabilities erode, factories cease operation, workers retire, and accumulated knowledge dissipates, rebuilding becomes a decades-long endeavor, if it is even feasible. History demonstrates unequivocally that any nation losing its manufacturing base never truly recovers. It becomes beholden to other countries for its goods, its technology, and its security. Manufacturing equates to power, and its loss is akin to national self-annihilation. Let us examine how this phenomenon has unfolded 3 times previously and why it is recurring. We return to Great Britain, tracing the complete narrative of how it transitioned from the world's industrial engine to a desolate industrial landscape. In 1850, Great Britain reigned as the undisputed global manufacturing leader. The Industrial Revolution, which had commenced in the 1760s, propelled Britain to unparalleled dominance by 1850, producing over 50% of the world's iron, over 50% of its coal, and over 40% of its manufactured products. British textiles adorned the globe, British steel laid the foundations for continental railways, and British vessels navigated international trade routes. British factories represented the pinnacle of technological advancement. This marks stage 1, manufacturing supremacy, a technological vanguard, and unmatched production capabilities. Great Britain possessed every conceivable advantage. It invented the steam engine, the power loom, the Bessemer steel process, railways, and the telegraph, all British innovations. It commanded vast deposits of coal and iron ore, accessed global markets through its extensive empire, and possessed ample capital for investment. Crucially, it had a skilled workforce adept at production. Britain's dominance was so profound that it embraced free trade, as no nation could rival its output. Why impose tariffs when one is unequivocally winning? Yet, supremacy is ephemeral, for success inevitably breeds emulation. Stage 2 witnesses the emergence of competitors who meticulously study, adapt, and ultimately improve upon existing technologies. In the mid-19th century, Germany and the United States embarked on their industrialization journeys. They rigorously analyzed British methods, acquired British machinery, and recruited British engineers. Subsequently, they refined and enhanced every aspect. Germany, in particular, invested heavily in technical education, establishing engineering schools that provided superior training compared to Britain's apprenticeship system. German enterprises like Krupp and Siemens pioneered advancements in steel and electrical engineering. By 1900, Germany's steel production had surpassed that of Great Britain. The United States benefited from inherent advantages, including vast natural resources, unlike Britain's more limited reserves. It boasted a larger domestic market, and American entrepreneurs such as Carnegie and Rockefeller forged industrial empires by leveraging the latest technological innovations. By 1900, the United States was producing more steel than Great Britain and Germany combined. This signifies stage 3, a decline in market share and escalating competition. Today, Great Britain imports nearly everything. It struggles to produce its own steel at competitive prices, has closed its final coal mines, and imports manufactured goods from China, Germany, and other Asian nations. The indelible lesson from Britain's experience is this: once manufacturing dominance is lost, it is never regained. Technology evolves, competitors surpass the leader, and being first offers no advantage when others can produce superior goods more affordably. However, Britain was an established empire. One might theorize that a single city with a concentrated industrial base could sustain its position more effectively. Detroit's fate, however, proved this notion incorrect. Let us shift our focus to 1950 and Detroit, Michigan, the Motor City. In 1950, Detroit ranked as America's wealthiest city on a per capita basis and served as the nexus of the automotive industry. Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, the Big Three, were all headquartered there. Collectively, they employed a staggering 250,000 workers directly within Detroit, with hundreds of thousands more engaged in ancillary industries, including parts suppliers, tool and die makers, steel mills, and rubber factories, forming the complete automotive supply chain. This represents stage 1, manufacturing dominance within a specialized industry. If you resided in Detroit, your livelihood was inextricably linked to the automotive sector or the businesses that supported it. The compensation was exceptional. United Auto Workers union jobs yielded between $25 and $30 per hour in today's currency, accompanied by comprehensive benefits, including health insurance, pensions, and job security. A high school graduate could secure factory employment, purchase a home, support a family, and retire comfortably. This was the tangible realization of the American dream. Detroit's population peaked at 1.8 million in 1950, boasting the nation's highest per capita income. The city witnessed the construction of a sophisticated highway system, the expansion of its suburbs, and the flourishing of its downtown with theaters, department stores, and restaurants. The city was in a state of unprecedented prosperity. However, this very dominance fostered complacency. Stage 2. Competitors emerge and refine the existing model. During the 1960s and 70s, Japanese automakers entered the U.S. market. Toyota, Honda, and Nissan. Initially, American consumers largely dismissed them, viewing their vehicles as small, inexpensive, and of inferior quality. Yet the Japanese manufacturers rapidly improved. They meticulously studied American manufacturing practices and subsequently enhanced them. They pioneered lean manufacturing, just-in-time inventory systems, and Kaizen, the philosophy of continuous improvement, all while producing superior vehicles that were more reliable, fuel-efficient, and cost-effective to maintain. The oil crisis of 1973, which caused a dramatic surge in gasoline prices, rendered American muscle cars undesirable. Consumers gravitated towards fuel efficiency, a demand readily met by Japanese automobiles. The Big Three, meanwhile, persisted in manufacturing the same vehicles: large, inefficient, and unreliable. They operated under the flawed assumption that American consumers would always prioritize domestic products. This proved to be a critical miscalculation. Stage 3. Market share declines and offshoring commences. By the 1980s, Japanese automakers commanded 30% of the U.S. market. The Big Three experienced a precipitous decline in market share. Their primary response was cost reduction, leading to factory closures in Detroit and the relocation of production to lower-cost regions such as Tennessee and Mexico, where labor costs were significantly lower. Detroit's automotive employment plummeted from 250,000 in 1950 to 100,000 by 1990, and the decline continued unabated. Stage 4. Factory closures accelerate and jobs vanish. The 2000s proved catastrophic for Detroit. The global financial crisis of 2008 nearly led to the collapse of General Motors and Chrysler. Both companies filed for bankruptcy. While the government provided bailouts, the Detroit factories affected by these closures never reopened. Ford, though it navigated the crisis without a government bailout, also closed Detroit-based plants. Let us examine the American Rust Belt from 1970 to 2020. The Rust Belt, encompassing states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, and Wisconsin, represented the industrial heartland of America. In 1970, this region was the source of the steel, machinery, and goods that constructed the nation. Pittsburgh was the epicenter of steel production, Cleveland specialized in steel and machinery, Youngstown was synonymous with steel, Gary, Indiana, was a steel hub, Akron produced rubber, and Buffalo was a manufacturing center. This exemplifies Stage 1, manufacturing dominance across multiple key industries. In 1970, the United States accounted for 20% of the world's steel production. U.S. Steel alone employed 300,000 workers, while Bethlehem Steel employed 165,000, and Republic Steel, LTV Steel, and numerous other companies collectively employed millions in steel, mills, and associated industries. These were well-compensated, unionized jobs, offering wages of $30 to $40 per hour in today's currency, complete with benefits and pensions. A high school graduate could join a mill and after 30 years retire with a full pension. Entire towns were established around these mills. Youngstown, Ohio, with a population of 170,000 in 1970, owed its existence to the steel industry. However, the rest of the world was rapidly catching up. Stage 2. Competitors emerge, utilizing modern technology. In the 1970s, Germany, Japan, and South Korea invested in new steel mills incorporating cutting-edge technologies such as electric arc furnaces and continuous casting. These methods were considerably more efficient than the older American blast furnaces and were complemented by lower labor costs. American steelworkers earned approximately $25 per hour, while their Korean counterparts earned around $3 per hour, a stark economic reality. By 1980, American steel had become uncompetitive. It was more cost-effective to import foreign steel than to produce it domestically. Instead of modernizing their facilities, American steel companies opted to lobby for tariffs and reduce costs. Offshoring commenced. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, American steel plants began to close, starting with the least efficient facilities and progressing to the older, integrated mills. Companies declared bankruptcy. U.S. Steel drastically reduced its workforce from 300,000 to 50,000 employees. Bethlehem Steel filed for bankruptcy in 2001, LTV Steel in 2000, and Republic Steel ceased to exist entirely. Entire corporations vanished. This decline was not confined to the steel industry. Manufacturing across the entire Rust Belt collapsed. Textile production shifted to China, electronics manufacturing moved to Asia, and machinery production migrated to Mexico. The North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, in 1994 significantly accelerated this offshoring trend. Companies could establish factories in Mexico, pay workers approximately $2 per hour instead of $25, and import goods duty-free. Thousands of factories relocated. Stage 4. Factory closures intensify and jobs disappear. The 2000s delivered the final blow. China's accession to the World Trade Organization, WTO, in 2001 fueled an explosive growth in its manufacturing sector. By 2010, China was producing more steel than the entire remainder of the world combined. It manufactured virtually every category of product: textiles, electronics, machinery, tools, and furniture, all at prices that American factories could not match. The Rust Belt experienced a massive exodus of jobs. Manufacturing employment decreased from 19 million in 1980 to 11 million by 2010, representing a loss of 8 million jobs. These lost positions were not replaced by comparable employment opportunities. A factory worker earning $60,000 per year might find themselves in retail earning a mere $25,000 annually, if fortunate. Entire towns perished. Youngstown's population dwindled from 170,000 to 60,000. The steel mills were either demolished or abandoned. Gary, Indiana, saw its population fall from 175,000 to 69,000, with entire city blocks left vacant. Flint, Michigan, experienced the collapse of its auto industry, resulting in a 50% population decline. Akron, having lost its rubber industry, and Buffalo, with the cessation of its manufacturing base, became stark symbols of industrial demise. These communities grappled with high unemployment, widespread poverty, and devastating drug epidemics, with opioids disproportionately affecting the Rust Belt as individuals, stripped of hope, employment, and future prospects, turned to substance abuse. Factories that once employed thousands were reduced to derelict ruins or razed entirely, leaving behind desolate tracts of land. The enduring lesson of the Rust Belt is that when manufacturing departs, entire communities are devastated and the jobs rarely, if ever, return. We have observed three distinct examples: Great Britain, Detroit, and the Rust Belt, all of which followed an identical five-stage pattern. Astonishingly, the entire United States is now progressing through this same pattern. Let us dissect this pattern as it has proven consistent in every instance. Stage 1. Manufacturing dominance and technological leadership. This characterized Great Britain in 1850, Detroit in 1950, the Rust Belt in 1970, and America as a whole in 1950 and 1970. In each scenario, they were the preeminent, most efficient, most advanced, and most productive entities. This very success, however, bred complacency. Stage 2. Competitors emerge, meticulously study technology, and ultimately surpass the leader. Germany and America emulated Great Britain. Japan replicated Detroit's model. China learned from the Rust Belt. Each time, the emerging competitors analyzed the established leader, adopted what proved effective, innovated upon it, and introduced lower labor costs. The incumbent leaders, in turn, dismissed their rivals, rationalizing that they could not match their quality or would never catch up. A consistently erroneous assessment. Stage 3. Market share erodes and offshoring commences. Great Britain witnessed a decline in market share to Germany and America by 1900. Detroit lost ground to Japan by 1980. The Rust Belt experienced a significant drop in market share to China by 2000. The prevailing response, rather than fostering innovation, was to slash costs and, instead of reinvesting, to relocate production to more economical locales. This strategy exacerbated the decline. Stage 4. Factory closures accelerate and jobs vanish. This occurred in Britain during the 1930s and 1950s, in Detroit in the 2000s, and in the Rust Belt from 2000 to 2020. Once factories close, they rarely reopen. Displaced workers do not find equivalent employment. Communities suffer devastating collapse, and for America as a whole, we are currently experiencing this stage. Since 2000, the United States has lost 5 million manufacturing jobs. Factories have shuttered across the nation. Our trade deficit has widened significantly, with imports exceeding exports by $800 billion. Stage 5. Complete deindustrialization and economic dependence. Great Britain reached this point by 1950, importing nearly all manufactured goods. Detroit achieved this status by 2013, with its automotive industry effectively gone from the city. The Rust Belt reached this stage by 2020, relying on steel produced in China and goods manufactured in Asia. The United States is now entering Stage 5. Let us assess America's current position. We are firmly in Stage 4, teetering on the brink of Stage 5. Manufacturing's contribution to GDP has plummeted from 28% in 1950 to a mere 11% today. While the population has nearly doubled since 1980, manufacturing employment has only marginally increased from 13 million to 13 million, yet our capacity to produce at scale has diminished. We are no longer capable of manufacturing our own pharmaceuticals. 80% of the active ingredients in American drugs are produced in China or India. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we lacked the domestic capacity to produce masks, ventilators, or personal protective equipment, necessitating reliance on imports from China. We cannot produce our own electronics. While iPhones are designed in California, every component is manufactured in Asia, as we lack the necessary supply chains and workforce. Our ability to produce steel is insufficient. We import more steel than we produce. China manufactures 1 billion tons annually, while the US produces only 80 million tons. We are dependent. Our shipbuilding capacity is negligible. China constructs 40% of the world's ships, while America builds less than 1%. Our Navy even relies on vessels constructed overseas. We cannot produce advanced semiconductors. Taiwan manufactures 90% of the world's advanced chips. Should China annex Taiwan, we risk losing access to the chips that power everything from cars and weapons to computers. We have hollowed out our manufacturing base, and its reconstruction would require decades and trillions of dollars if it is even possible. The requisite knowledge has vanished. The workers who operated these factories have retired or passed away. Supply chains have relocated to Asia. Machinery has been sold or scrapped. It is not a simple matter of flipping a switch to re-establish American manufacturing. We have lost 50 years of critical capability. The economic ramifications are dire, an annual trade deficit of $800 billion, signifying that $800 billion leaves the country each year, never to return. The absence of middle-class jobs is profound. Manufacturing positions that once paid $60,000 to $80,000 annually with benefits have been replaced by service sector jobs that pay $30,000 to $40,000 with no benefits, decimating the middle class. Our economic dependence on China is alarming. They possess the leverage to restrict our access to pharmaceuticals, electronics, and manufactured goods, while we have no comparable leverage over them. This creates a significant national security vulnerability. In the event of a conflict with China, we would lack the industrial capacity to produce essential weaponry. China, conversely, possesses this capacity. Stage 5 represents complete deindustrialization, and we are perilously close to achieving it. At our current pace, within 5 years, American manufacturing will be effectively defunct. We will transition into a service-based economy reliant on finance, technology, and entertainment, but critically, we will produce nothing. Service economies, however, are insufficient to sustain superpowers. Manufacturing is the true engine of power. Great Britain learned this lesson profoundly, transitioning from a global superpower to a secondary nation once its manufacturing capabilities waned. America is now confronting this harsh reality. 3 industrial powerhouses, Great Britain, Detroit, and the Rust Belt, all succumbed to the same 5-stage pattern of industrial decline. Each believed their dominance rendered them immune to failure. Each underestimated and dismissed their competitors. Each prioritized short-term profits over long-term industrial strength, and each ultimately lost everything. Their factories closed, their jobs vanished, their communities disintegrated, and none ever truly recovered. America currently stands at stage 4, one step away from complete deindustrialization, one step away from absolute economic dependence on China, and one step away from forfeiting the industrial bedrock that elevated us to superpower status. And here lies the most devastating truth. Once manufacturing is lost, it is irretrievably gone. Great Britain has not rebuilt its industrial base in 75 years. Detroit has not recovered in 50 years. The Rust Belt continues to languish 40 years later. The established pattern dictates that once stage 5 is reached, it is permanent. We have been presented with 3 distinct warnings, 3 identical collapses, and 3 vivid illustrations of the consequences when nations cease to produce. America is now following this exact trajectory. The only unresolved variable is the timeline. How long until stage 5 is fully realized? Perhaps 5 years. It is even conceivable that we have already reached this point and are simply unwilling to acknowledge it. However, the data unequivocally indicates that we are a single stage away from irreversible decline. If this revelation has illuminated the extent of our losses and the perilous direction we are headed, please subscribe. Because when stage 5 is complete, when America is incapable of manufacturing anything, you will need to understand precisely how we arrived at this juncture and why we failed to foresee it. The answers are not hidden in the future. They are etched in the rust and ruins of Great Britain, Detroit, and the Rust Belt, and I will meticulously unveil them for you.